So my family's from Somalia, and in 1991 they were forced to flee because of the civil war. They went to Kenya in 91, and in 94, that's when I was born. In 97, we got asylum to come to Canada. For whatever reason, they sent us to Edmonton in February, middle of winter. And actually, when we came here, my sister, she convinced me that snow was sugar. So I put it in my backpack, and that was my first experience in Edmonton. But I grew up here, and it's a city I know the best. It's the city I love. I know almost every nook and cranny here. And up until a few years ago, I didn't know much about the land we stand on, about where I stand right now. This changed when last year I was riding my bike down 104, and a guy called me the N-word. Now, my first reaction was shock. I wanted to punch him, but I knew that I would be charged with assault. So I took out my camera, I recorded it, and it blew up. And the reaction there was interesting, mostly because people got fairly defensive. There would be comments like, this is not Edmonton, this is just one person, don't worry. I'm happy how you handled that in a calm way. Love fights hate. It seemed that they were more concerned about acknowledging this racism is here than finding ways to challenge it. And it made me wonder, what if this is Edmonton? And this is when I looked into our history and I read stories about other refugees, Black Americans who came to Alberta in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, and they faced a lot of resistance. People who worked in this building, they gave speeches that said, we want no dark spots in Alberta. Their logic against Black immigration was that we were not suitable to the climate, which is like, I'm here, I've been through like 20 winters. But anyways, they also said that we were a danger to white people. One writer even said, this is a direct quote, what do people think about the Negro invasion now pouring into the Canadian West and farming large settlements contiguous to and among the whites? There can scarcely be anyone who is not aware of the atrocities committed by members of these terrible communities, the only corresponding punishment for which is lawless lynching. Already it is reported that 3 white women in Edmonton and Peace River districts have been victims of these outrages. This was an Edmonton article. And this was a common thought, and it's what led to petitions being circulated on these few blocks where people argued against Black immigration. Petitions that are supported by our then Chamber of Commerce, trade unions, and other prominent Edmontonians, including Oliver. And this was not a fringe element of our society. Aside from the legislature, the Klan, and yes, the Klan existed in Edmonton, their office was like 5 blocks that way. And they supported Daniel Knott. Well, actually, provincially, Alberta was one of the only jurisdictions to legally recognize the KKK. And they were recognized up until 2003. And it's not like the province is like, wait a minute. No, they have to re-register every 2 years, and they just stop filing their documents. So one must wonder if they had their finances in check, they could still officially exist. But anyways, the Klan helped elect Daniel Knott, who was mayor of Edmonton in the 30s, and to celebrate, they lit a cross on Connors Hill, just on the other side of the river. And once he was in office, they wrote letters, and you can find these letters online, they wrote letters back and forth to each other, requesting more cross burnings at North Pines, and he would always sign each letter by saying, kind regards. Daniel Knott's portrait is one step outside the mayor's office. Go to City Hall, find the mayor's office, turn around, and you'll see his photo, but you won't see this fact about him. There's a reason why the Klan, in their official name, it was called the Invisible Empire. And that's because anytime they went to a prominent Edmontonian, a prominent politician, they would say, I want to be with you, but I can't stand with you. You have to be invisible. So politicians like Daniel Knott, as far as I'm concerned, were a part of the Invisible Empire. And this is not something that's 100 years ago, 80 years ago, 60 years ago. It's not a thing far in the past. Cross burnings were held up until recent times. The Klan was officially recognized up until 2003. And members of the refugees who came here before still have vivid memories of that organized discrimination. So this discrimination we see today is not sudden. We shouldn't be surprised when we see people marching through the streets, putting their hands up and saying, "Say hail." It's not a sudden thing. It's something that was built up. So we should not be asking how could this happen, rather we should look at this discrimination now and think critically about how we can challenge it. Black and Indigenous people are not more likely to be carded by coincidence, as the chief of police says. I know there's some officers here who can pass. I want to meet with the chief, so if you can pass on that request, I would really appreciate that. Black students, they're not straight, as Marissa said, into lower classes because they're stupid. And people are not called the N-word randomly on our street. There's reasons behind all these things. They built up, and it's built up by apathy from those who benefited from this discrimination. The Oliver, the Daniel Dodd, and those who benefit from this discrimination still, but don't speak about it. This is why, for activists, Charlottesville was a call to action. They cannot do what some progressives are talking about and only focus on the Nazi elements. There is white supremacists there is other, well, Nazis are white supremacists, but those white supremacists didn't like the Nazis. Anyways, it's weird. But we shouldn't only focus on Nazis. That shouldn't only be our response. We should understand that this supremacy is what built our city. In addition, it's what still leads to the systemic racism, and it's not an American problem. We're not immune to it. Canadians went down to Charlottesville. Canadians helped promote that rally, Rebel Media. They have a press pass to this legislature. Think about that. So we can no longer be apathetic. A problem in Edmonton is that people don't know about this discrimination and they don't know how to take action. This is why it's easy for us to reject things like this, because people are like, wait, we have racism here, there's problems here, this is an American thing. No, we have to look within. And we should also understand, when people tell me love fights hate, okay, I understand, but what do you think comes before that love? It's extremely difficult for me to love somebody who calls me the N-word. Rather, when they call me that word, I feel anger, sadness, isolation, frustration, and then eventually that leads to love. If we start discounting all those other feelings, then is that love genuine? So we can't take this positive, blind approach to racism. We need to understand. And finally, we should learn from the activists of the past, Edmontonian activists. In 1924, you guys were born in Parkes, Edmonton East Side. So there used to be a pool there, and black people were barred from that pool. So black Edmontonians, they organized and they resisted, and they went to City Hall. And in response, one city councilor said to them, it is not a question of superiority of race, but there is a line of distinction between the white man and the black races that cannot be bridged. I have every sympathy with the Negro, but they should be content with the wide sense of citizenship allowed to them in Edmonton and try not to force the issue. That sentiment is still here today, and it is still said by our leaders. I hear that all the time, from the Justice Minister, no, you have to wait, we can't immediately end carding. From the mayor, we have to wait, we need a more calculated approach. Okay. So, we need to understand that these are difficult conversations, and the first step is understanding there's a problem. In addition, it's also hearing other stories. My grandmother, she always told me that until the lion learns to speak, the tales of hunting will always favor the hunter. And today we're hearing stories of lions. Thank you for being here.